joined here today with Peter Lawrence, a senior executive who's worked across banking, finance and government, and really appreciate you joining me today.
Thank you, Andrew. Nice to be here.
Yeah, so I think the first question on a lot of people's mind is where truly is AI going and AI automation going in financial services?
Oh, I think it's moving at such pace, it's virtually difficult to keep up. But I think fundamentally the industry is changing. I mean, at a simplistic level, financial services is really easy. We make it complex, and that's where I think AI and automation will start to bring some of the simplicity back. And we make it complex for customers, we make it complex for staff, we make it complex for everyone. So I see AI, and particularly the automation-driven part of AI, a real boon for us to allow us to do better services, faster services, more accurate services, and actually provide an all-round better experience for all of our stakeholders.
Information security teams are faced with the challenge with AI coming into their production environments, that there's so many risks there of underlying security challenges with data access that might have been okay 5 or 10 years ago and was security via obscurity. But today AI is putting right in the front of the face of someone putting a question in that's incorrect and revealing information about the organization that they didn't know about. Has this resulted in a really significant change in how organizations need to look at data security? Is this creating new practices or jobs to be done for those teams or the organization more widely?
Well, I think what it absolutely does is expose some of the challenges you've got. And I think the challenge of that is, how do you get something in real time that's able to give you a good view of what's going on in your data landscape? And particularly document landscape, which is the one that worries me the most in most organizations. People keep things too long. They typically don't have the right metadata. They typically don't have the access rights. And that's probably true in just about everywhere I've worked in the last 30 years. So, how do you actually manage in that? And I think that's where you need the ability to be able to see things in near real time. But how do we get that better view of what's going on? And then how do we actually correct it or take some mitigating action to minimize that risk? And I think it will enforce better data practices. And most organizations will enforce it relatively quickly. But I think that is the real challenge for me from a data security perspective. And then that links to access as well, who's got access to what and how do we allow that. It will enforce us to prove and better. And it's actually, if I look at it from one side, it's a good thing. I actually look at it and go, well, it's actually a good thing to happen. Did we need AI for that to happen at speed? Yes. Do we need help to do it? Yes. But I think overall it's a better thing for the industry and it's a better thing generally.
Yeah, and it's like we use the language when we speak to customers about this being like data access debt. It's something that's existed for a long time, but it's finally something like tech debt that you have to pay off eventually. Have you ever seen like the ability to assess or create processes around like access audits and these kind of practices inside of organizations? Like, what are the inefficiencies you've seen around them?
Oh, well, they're just inefficient generally. I mean, typically the tools you get with some of the products you use aren't great. They're difficult to understand. They're hard to use, and it's quite a painful process often to mitigate those things. So one of the great things about it is having tools that we can do that across a large volume of documents quickly, and then we're able to take action relatively quickly as well. And I think that's the real key for us. I think if you actually look at data retention policies, most people have to have them. I would argue that most organisations might have one but don't really obey it or manage to it. And I think some of the tools that you talk about that gives you better insights, you're able to do that in a much smarter, much faster, much more compliant way. And then from a business perspective, that reduces your risk. Anything that helps us to do that and to reduce that data debt, document debt, as you described, is absolutely a plus. You just absolutely need those sort of tools to help you, and it's really, really important.
And a key thing to show the regulators is evidence that you are complying and kind of always growing in your posture against those new risks.
I think it's also regulators, but it's also customers. I mean, it's virtually a social license to trade, if you want to put it that way, because if customers think you haven't got good practice, there's always someone else they can go to. They can go somewhere else because we don't believe that you're looking after our data appropriately. We don't believe you've got that. And you'll see customers, I think, over time, and I talk about digital trust a lot to the teams and a lot of people I work with. It's very easy to lose digital trust. It's very hard to build it. And it's one of those things where, if they see you're not doing things, you've lost that digital trust. Well, why wouldn't I go to a company over here that's demonstrated they can do it?
Yeah.
So I think it's that license to operate type of analogy that will come if you can't do some of these things.
Yeah, and they always seem to rear their head over time and reduce reputation of organisations. So it's a thing you've got to be super vigilant about. I really agree with your point.
Yeah, 100%.
Thanks so much, Peter. Really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you, Andrew.